Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
My name is Dr. Adrian Reinhardt, and I'm the last surviving member of the Kronos project team under the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. You've never heard about me or the project because for all intents and purposes we do not exist. But I'll be damned if NASA is going to let my colleagues' deaths be for nothing more than a classified folder collecting dust on a shelf. I know you probably won't believe me. I wouldn't if I were you. But I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just asking you to listen. The Kronos project was secretly established in 1988 by NASA and headed by the Department of Defense. The goal was to use deep-range satellites and telescopes to search the far regions of space for signs of life beyond our solar system. What we found was something far worse. In 2004, a signal was detected from the Boötes void, which is a vast span of nothingness in space, nearly 1 billion light-years in diameter. And when I say there is nothing, I really mean nothing. The void contains absolutely no matter or even dark matter. It's essentially a definitive null zone in the universe devoid of anything, all except for a single continuous signal. I remember it like it was yesterday. My colleagues and I were sitting in a room that can best be described as a discount version of the Mission Control Facility in Houston. We were all there at our desks going over sheets of useless data from other reconnaissance scans until the detection alarm started to go off, signifying that a signal had been detected from deep space. When we started going over the data, we triangulated the signal source to RA 14 hours 50 minutes and 0 second, DEC plus 46 degrees 0 minutes 0. For those not versed in stellar coordinates, it pointed right smack dab in the middle of the void. Given the vast empty region of space, we at first had thought it was a system malfunction, but when we restarted it, it began immediately reporting a signal coming from those coordinates once again. We had originally thought we were just picking up fragments of a supernova or stellar burst of a long-dead star that had once been in that section of space, but that hypothesis was quickly uprooted when we were able to filter through the background data and convert it into an audio format. It wasn't one long wave of static that you would normally detect from such cosmic events. It was a continuation rhythmic series of beeps that sounded eerily like a heartbeat. Now, of course, we were miles away from actually confirming or denying that this signal was the work of some advanced alien civilization hiding away in the empty regions of space, but we were still absolutely ecstatic over the finding. I don't remember seeing a single one of the faces in there not smiling from ear to ear, while that beating, pulsing signal repeated itself over and over again through the speakers of the control center. Following our little eureka moment, we followed the proper procedures and contacted our administrators and awaited further instructions as we aimed every satellite and listening device we had at our disposal at those coordinates. I remember feeling like a kid on Christmas Eve as I was driving home that night, so impossibly eager to see what the next day would bring. Unfortunately, the days would roll into months, then into years until the next chapter of the ongoing cosmic heartbeat signal would present itself. On August 24, 2009, we were given the go-ahead by the Obama administration to send a reply signal into the same region of the void that the signal was still coming from. Although this was mainly done as a ceremonial milestone, given the fact that the region of space was nearly 700 million light-years away, it would at least be 1,400 million years for a reply to our message would even reach us. Given that the message was still a continuous repetition of 2 beats per second, we decided to use a similar frequency using a more code translation of hello. We popped some champagne and enjoyed the event, as much as one could in a top-secret research facility under a shadow section of the United States government. That night, at around 3 a.m., I received a call from Dr. Westcott concerning the signal. I'll never forget how disappointed and yet terrified his voice was over the phone. "The signal," he said. "It just stopped." 4 years that seemed to be the end of our little interstellar communications, but we still carried on with our research, always keeping at least one monitoring device locked on the targeted coordinates of the void. We had a few detected bursts of information that piqued out interests at the time from other regions of space, but nothing like heartbeat signal. I wish I could tell you that's where the story ends. I wish I could say that rather than typing this out as the last few hours of my life ticked away, that I was back in the facility searching the stars. But these are the wishful thoughts of a man at the end of his rope. It's at this time I've come to the realization that there are no happy endings. 8 months ago, while going through a routine series of scans, we received yet another transmission from the Boötes void. One I'm still trying to come to terms with, not because it began again, but because it defied the very laws of physics. This was the message, translated in Morse code, "Goodbye." It was a reply to the message we sent nearly 11 years ago. Somehow a communication that should have transpired over a course of 1,400 million years took place in just 11. It didn't make any sense. It still doesn't. None of what was happening made any logical sense. And that wasn't even the ridiculous part. As soon as the transmission was received and translated, the empty space around the center of the void began to expand as the surrounding star systems seemed to just blink out of existence. One by one, like a series of light bulbs being turned off, the stars began to go out. It was almost as if we were watching it occur in real time, which was another astronomical impossibility. You see, we can only observe as fast as light travels. Which means if we were watching the Boötes void that is 700 million light-years away, we would be seeing it as it was 700 million years ago. But now we were watching an event unfold that was absolutely cosmically impossible. The rate at which the stars were vanishing was expanding the void at a rate of nearly 5 million light-years a minute. I don't know how to describe it other than saying that the dark nothingness was growing faster than the speed of light itself, seemingly consuming and extinguishing everything in its path. All the while, that message just kept ringing throughout the room. I don't know how or why, but very quickly the implications of this flooded over the control center as my colleagues and I began to realize the gravity of this impossible event. There was no argument amongst us whether this was possible or not. It clearly wasn't, yet it was happening all the same. At this rate, it will reach the solar system in a little under a year. Dr. Waterford sounded weak and hoarse. He exclaimed the obvious. We were all thinking the same thing. In a little under 360 days, this cosmic expanse would reach our very own star system. We of course didn't know what would happen when it did, but in astronomy, you always think of the worst. If the sun was somehow extinguished by the void as all the surrounding stars were, it would take a little under a year for the Earth to become an uninhabitable wasteland. That was, of course, even if the planet wasn't completely consumed and absorbed into nothingness as well. The entire time I ran the calculations and possible scenarios in my head, the message we received kept popping up again and again, seemingly trying to answer the question as to what was going to happen. Goodbye. It seemed to hit Dr. Redmond first as he leapt to his feet and made for a dashing sprint to the exit. Soon, everyone began to follow. Under normal circumstances, you'd think that the man's cheese had finally slid off his metaphorical crackers. But given the current situation, given what we were witnessing, he may have been the most sensible one in that entire room. Then, just as a few others were making their way towards the exit, it suddenly dawned on me as well. The message, it must have been telling us and everything else in its path goodbye. Whatever was in the Boötes void was coming for us, coming for everything. At the time, we really weren't thinking of the consequences of our actions. We weren't focused on the repercussions of suddenly jumping ship and going AWOL from a top-secret government program. The only thing racing in our mind was the sweeping wall of nothingness hurtling towards us faster than the speed of light. I went straight home and drowned myself in a bottle, hoping to wake up the next morning to realize everything was just some crazy dream. I wouldn't be so lucky, of course. In truth, I would come to find that out very quickly. That night, at about 1 a.m., I was awoken by my phone. When I went to check the unknown caller, it turned out to be one of my colleagues, Dr. Maverick Bircham, who was one of the last men to even leave the facility that day. "You've got to run, Adrian," he yelled, trying to catch his breath. I had wondered at the time what had caused him such physical exertion. What are you talking about?" I asked as my head pounded with a throbbing migraine. "They're scrubbing the project. Cleaning house. Don't you know what that means?" That first sentence was all I needed to sober up. If what he said was true, then word had gotten up the chain of command, and they had now come to knowledge about both the discovery and its implications, as well as the science team's reaction to said implications. If they were scrubbing the project, then we would be the first to be cleaned up. "How do you know about this?" I asked him. I tried to get to go over to Maguire's house to discuss possible outcomes about the expansion, but when I got there his house was burning to ashes, and Cuthbert and Lethbridge won't answer their phones. And on top of all that, I think I'm being followed. "Are you sure?" I asked as I made my way to the bedroom window, searching for any sign of government hitmen. "Yes, absolutely. I've driven around my block twice, and now I'm on 58 South. There's been a black unmarked car following me the entire way. I could almost make out what were sniffles through the speaker. Listen, you've got to get the hell out of Dodge right now, while you've still got a pot to piss in. If you're half as smart as I know you are, then you'll dash." Those were the last words I heard from him before the signal gave out. I didn't need much more of a warning after that. I quickly got some things together and piled up into my Avalon and hit the highway. I've been on the run ever since then, dodging any sign of suspicion by moving state to state, county to county. All until now. Once I post this, they'll obviously be able to trace it, and I'm going to let them. I've been running all year, and I'm tired of it. Mainly because there doesn't seem to be a point to it any longer. Within a few months, the expanse will reach us anyway. So forgive me if I take the easy way out of this. I wish I could tell you in these final words that the governments of the world are working together to somehow try to stop this. But they know better. They know it's coming. And rather than be upfront with you, they want to hide it as long as possible. That's why there's been so much shit clogging the news and media here lately. They want total blanket coverage of so much chaos here on Earth. That way no one looks up to see the inevitable.
I stared at the generic, nameless suit standing in front of me. He claimed that he worked for the CIA, even flashed his badge and all. It didn't matter to me whether or not I believed him. The only thing that mattered was the fact that he paid half upfront, promising the other half after the job was done. I'm a part of a freelance mercenary group, modern-day soldiers of fortune. We've been hired by government agencies before, but mostly just ones in Africa and Southeast Asia. You can imagine the type of shit that we've been asked to pull off. Safe to say, ethics aren't our primary concern. Now, I'm not blatantly immoral. If somebody offered us an exorbitant amount to oversee security for a human trafficking ring, I'd shoot them on the spot. But that's not to say that we're good people. Far from it, in fact. I don't expect you to feel sympathy for me. I just want to get my story out there. Something very strange is going on. Something that we should probably all be worried about. The mission itself was presented as a simple one, but the circumstances surrounding it were more unusual. We're staging a raid on a fanatical religious cult in Montana. Real psychotic bunch. I remember the suit telling me I couldn't have imagined a better compensation than the one he was offering, so I listened intently. In all honesty, it was nearly enough to set my entire team up for retirement. Nevertheless, the whole situation unnerved me. We were caught completely off guard when they contacted us. Somehow, they'd found our email address on the dark web. I knew what we were doing was illegal, but they didn't seem to care. In fact, they never mentioned anything about our past crimes at all. In reality, they probably could have smoked us at any point. It didn't make a lot of sense why they chose not to, or why they chose to approach us at all. I had my hunches, of course. most of them to do with the fact that we were entirely expendable and operated under the radar the best we could. Obviously, we didn't do a good enough job. Whatever. It is what it is. We needed this payday. Our little operations couldn't last forever. I know it's not important for the job, but what's the purpose of this raid? These guys growing weed or something? I asked. The question came out snarkier than I'd intended it to. The suit just grinned. I guess he had a sense of humor. Well, he began. I doubt you'll be telling anybody, so I suppose you might as well know. He seemed confident in that assumption. Maybe a little too much so. These people stumbled upon something that they shouldn't have, he continued. And then they tried to hide it. Better not be something that's moments away from exploding. I said. The suit laughed this time. It's not so simple. Mister, what do you know about the existence of extraterrestrial life? I raised my eyebrow. What the hell was he about to tell me? You're asking me if I believe in aliens, I responded. I took a second to consider it. Sure, why not? He went on to explain the real objective. It sounded absurd, but it was also coming out of the horse's mouth. You tell me what I'm supposed to believe. Apparently, a UFO had crashed on a farm in southeastern Montana a few days prior. As luck would have it, this farm belonged to the Church of Blissful Ascension, the cult in question. Shortly after it landed, some cult members stumbled upon it, subsequently being ordered to drag it into the leader's farmhouse, which was quite literally a mansion. Not much was known about the leader, other than his epithet, which was the Divine Messenger. Yeah, that type of guy. In reality, the cult was just a front for the trafficking of various goods, which had brainwashed its members into doing a lot of the dirty work. The most interesting part about this was the UFO itself. It was allegedly about 12 feet wide, 3 feet in diameter, and shaped like a pill. Before it landed, it had been moving erratically, seemingly teleporting short distances every few seconds or so. After it landed, some kind of dark green fluid began leaking out of it. Now for the actual mission. We simply had to go in and assist a team of SAC/SOG agents in wiping out every single member. No survivors, no witnesses, no exceptions. What the CIA planned to do with the UFO afterwards was none of our business. Not that I really wanted to know. We didn't have much time to prepare for the raid, but it didn't sound like we needed it. We were dealing with amateurs. Most likely just trigger-happy rednecks who couldn't strategize or aim for shit. I suppose raid wasn't the most apt way to describe the job. It seemed more like a slaughter than anything else. My team of 6 met up with the SAC/SOG team, also 6, at a small underground complex used by the CIA for clandestine operations located about 30 minutes away from the farm. There, we geared up, went over tactics, and were told to repeat the objective at hand. No witnesses, no survivors. After all that was said and done, we piled into a SWAT truck and drove off. We'd never worked with the CIA in the past, so we supposed this was standard procedure. We suited up in black tactical gear provided by the agents themselves. This part was a bit odd to me. We had our own gear, stuff we'd been using for the longest time. Both sets were nearly identical, but the agents still insisted that we use theirs. The atmosphere in the truck was also disconcerting. Maybe it was just in my head, but everybody seemed so stiff. The agents clutched their rifles with iron grips while staring blankly ahead. My team tried talking amongst ourselves, but every word just felt awkward. I just chalked it up to nerves, which didn't make any sense, because I'd never felt nerves like that before. After what felt like hours, we finally arrived, stopping some odd yards away from the farmhouse in order to remain undetected. We piled out, got into formation, and began. I was assigned the furthest flank position, so I stayed back as everybody else moved ahead. The closest people in front of me were one of my guys and an agent. It didn't take long for the strangeness to amplify. I noticed that the agent was gradually moving slower and slower. Eventually, I caught up to him. Well, it was more like I was forced to catch up. If I'd been moving any slower, I would have stopped. This agent had ruined the entire formation without anybody at the front noticing. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked as I walked up beside him. Without answering my question, he handed me a small scrap of paper. I took a quick glance at it, seeing an address and a date time written down on it. "Meet me. Don't be late," he said, no inflection at all in his voice. "Do whatever you can to stay alive." As soon as he finished saying this, he sped up, reclaiming his original position. Obviously, that interaction was a cause for concern. I had to start wondering just what the hell I'd gotten my team into. I seriously started considering calling it off right then and there, but before I knew it, bullets were flying. The agents at the front had taken out the 2 guards standing at the front entrance. Soon after, we blew the door down and stormed inside. The agents shot down a few more guards stationed on the main floor before we started heading towards the basement. Once we got down there, 10 more guards/cult members were waiting for us. As per the mission, I raised my rifle and prepared to fire. Unfortunately, I couldn't have been prepared for what happened next. The agent at the front raised his fist, signaling for us to stop. Surprisingly, the guards didn't shoot at us. In fact, they didn't even react. The agents began turning around before aiming their rifles at us instead. There's been a change of plans. We'd been set up. That much was obvious. I didn't even have time to curse before the shit went off the rails. I ducked, feverishly trying to avoid point-blank gunfire, while firing off nearly blind, retaliatory shots. I managed to stumble my way behind some cover, but not before having 2 bullets graze my cheek and thigh. I peeked out, seeing the cult guards with malicious grins across their faces, also shooting at my team and my team only. Amidst the chaos, I could see Faisal, one of my men, rush an agent in an attempt to take him down to the ground. It was definitely a desperation move. But despite Faisal being substantially larger than the agent, his takedown was stuffed, and he was subsequently thrown into a pillar. I could feel rage washing over me. I raised my rifle, aimed at the agent's head, and fired. He didn't go down. My aim wasn't the issue. I could see the bullets drilling into the side of his helmet. The guy even flinched, but he didn't fall. Instead, he finished Faisal with a shot to the head and walked off. My mouth fell agape as I started backing up. I guess I was pretty rattled, because I stopped paying attention to my surroundings. I felt myself bump into somebody before spinning around to see another agent staring me down. I thought about going for my knife, but before I could even make a move, the agent grabbed my arm and effortlessly judo slammed me onto the floor. I'd been thrown before, but this was by far the most painful one I'd ever experienced. It felt like I was being tossed by a gorilla, not by a man with a similar build to me. His strength was ridiculous. Once on the ground, he mounted me before raising a fist. I knew with every fiber of my being that a single punch would pulverize my entire skull. As I started preparing my soul for the afterlife, the agent hesitated. "Play dead," he whispered, his voice a familiar one. He slammed his fist down inches away from my head and cracked the floor next to me before flipping me face down. "Don't move, no matter what happens," he whispered again. The pressure blanketing my body soon disappeared. The agent was getting up. I know what he said, but I didn't want to listen. I wanted to help my team. I got them into this mess, so I was obligated to get them out. But I didn't move. I knew it was useless. The basement had gotten quiet. No more sounds of struggle. My team was dead, and it was entirely my fault. Moments later, somebody began talking, snapping me out of my self-pity session. "Geez, job well done, huh?" It didn't sound like one of the agents, so I assumed the voice belonged to a cult member. What the hell is going on? I thought to myself. Were they working together? Now about the payment dash. His question was interrupted by gunfire. A brief bout of additional chaos followed as more bodies dropped to the floor. I counted about 10 in total. I guess they weren't working together after all. "All right, let's make this quick," one of the agents said. I had to wonder what he was talking about. What more did they need to do? I listened to the sounds of scuffling boots as the agents went around doing something. I opened one of my eyes just a sliver, trying to make out what the hell was going on. I wish I'd just kept it closed. I was lying right next to Ricardo, one of my team members. As I stared at his lifeless, bullet-ridden body, I want to scream. I forced myself to keep my mouth shut. I continued watching as the agents went around to every single body, both my team and the cult members, and injected some kind of dark green fluid into their veins. Soon enough, they got to me. I held my breath and laid stiff as I felt the needle go into my arm. Thankfully, the guy didn't check my pulse. I was losing my fucking mind at this point. Not just because I was playing dead while some mystery fluid was being mixed into my bloodstream. It was the whole damn situation. If this hadn't been the worst day of my life, then it was certainly a contender. Afterwards, I heard the agents mumbling to each other. I couldn't make out much, but I did hear 12 hours being said quite a lot. 12 hours? 12 hours to what? After about 5 more minutes, the agents finally left. I laid still for some time after that. I wasn't exactly looking forward to seeing what the agents had left behind, but I wouldn't be able to get to the bottom of this by wasting my time mourning. My entire body was in pain as I pulled myself up. Trying not to look at the massacre around me, I took out the piece of paper that one agent had given to me. The address belonged to a motel in Billings, while the meeting time was in 10 hours. I stripped off all of my gear and made myself look as presentable as I possibly could before getting the hell out of the farmhouse and trying to hitch a ride on a nearby road. A couple of hours and $200 later, somebody finally agreed to give me a ride. Luckily, Billings isn't too far away from a farm, so I think that I'll be able to get to the motel in time. However, I'm not so sure that I'm going to like whatever's waiting for me there.
Not a weather balloon or a satellite or any other clandestine, top-secret human-made object. No, it was a goddamn UFO, and I'm tired of repeating myself, of the ridicule, of the cover-ups. I've got alien lore running in my blood, see. My grandfather owned the ranch adjacent to the one where it crashed, then my daddy after him, and now me. I've grown up around countless tales told and retold about what happened that night exactly 70 years ago. Some I've memorized by heart. I think the detail that always stuck out to me was the one about the beings. According to my grandfather, there were 3 aliens. One died at the site, one died in custody. Who the hell knows where the 3rd one went? And that's what gets me. Where's that one? Did it escape? Is it still living out there, somewhere in the desert? Is it afraid? Or plotting revenge? Sometimes, late at night, I'll stay up speculating about what happened to it. I'd like to think that it's still out there somewhere, watching, waiting. At least, that's what I believe. And Daddy always told me all that matters is the belief. I'm sure you all know that in early July 1947, something crashed into a field in Roswell. And you've probably heard all about the debris and the speculation, and those who were labeled conspiracy theorists for contesting those speculations. But have you heard about how the animals still avoid the crash site to this day? How compasses go crazy when you walk through the area. That, sometimes, at night you can hear a strange, keening sound boiling up from the ground, like something is buried way beneath the surface. Now, if you've ever seen Breaking Bad, you know just how damn desolate New Mexico can be. You can hide a lot out there, even whole flying saucers. And sometimes I wonder, what if they never took the thing? What if they left it right where it was, hidden in plain sight? Or at least underneath it? What if that's why strange things still happen around here? Thoughts like those kept me up for longer than I'd like to admit. So I did the only logical thing one could do in this situation. I figured out how I could profit off of it, and I started giving tours, letting those who want to believe peruse my land, scour the sky, make a decent buck off it too. But I'm not here to brag about my business savvy, no. I'm here to write about something else I saw last night. Slipping between the stars, obscuring the moon. Told myself I'd finish it before the tour tonight. So here we are. There were only 3 of us that night, including me, which was odd. Figured the anniversary would attract more people out. Then again, I suppose the thrill that Roswell once held in the consciousness of most Americans has dwindled in recent years. So it goes, I guess. The moon was waxing gibbous, so it wasn't exactly ideal UFO watching conditions. But I didn't get any notice of cancellation. So at exactly 11 p.m. I left my house to meet them. And for those wondering, I find the best time to gaze up is on nights when the moon is new and the sky dark. You'll see more, much more. I saw them standing by the edge of my property, dimly lit by the light of the moon. As I got closer, I could see that it was a man and a woman, but it wasn't until I was right next to them that I saw it might have been a dad and his daughter. The guy was wearing a black suit, and at first, I felt anger and fear rise up thinking back to all the stories I heard of the men in black. But he didn't seem the type, leaning carelessly against the fence, reading something on his phone, and he had no tie. That was something both my grandfather and daddy were adamant on. They always wore black suits, black ties, black shoes, black hats, black sunglasses, and drove black cars. Always. Only their shirts were white. The girl next to him, in her teens, maybe younger or older, had one foot propped up on the bottom rung of the fence. She looked pissed. She was wearing a faded black Wolves in the throne room shirt, jeans, and those token red high tops. The shirt looked a few sizes too big for her, and I looked at the man, wondering if it might be his. "Hello." I called over to them, waving. The guy looked up from his phone and waved back, smiling, but the girl stayed where she was, a look of complete indifference on her features. "Hey, nice night," the man replied. "So let's have names. I'll go first. I'm Taylor." "Edward," the man said, then looked over at the girl. She looked away, clearly in a bad mood. So he continued, "And this is, my niece Eleanor." I paused for a beat, thrown off by his hesitation in naming the girl, then said, "Oh, like Eleanor Roosevelt?" But she sighed and replied, "No, like Eleanor Gardner, daughter of Samwise Gamgee." A Samwise. Edward cleared his throat. Her parents are big fans of Tolkien. "Oh, like the Lord of the Rings?" "Yep, exactly," Edward said. "I'm surprised they didn't name you something more overt, like Arwen or Galadriel." He laughed. "Right, Eleanor?" She rolled her eyes. "Right, Edward, and it's Elle now, remember?" Edward smirked. "Oh, yes. How could I have ever forgotten?" I thought the girl, Eleanor, Elle, was going to give him attitude again, but instead she looked up at him, beaming. I told her dad I would take her to a super fun place. "It was between this or Area 51, Elle said, "which is still an option if you want to go." She sighed long and heavy. "I told you, I don't want to die." Edward grinned brightly. "And I told you, you'll be with me." I looked between them, both amused and bemused, then said, "I take it your niece likes aliens and the sort?" Edward burst out laughing. Eleanor rolled her eyes and said, "Absolutely loathe them." I laughed lightly, unsure how to read the two, wondering for a moment if the guy, Edward, might have kidnapped the girl, then said, "Shall we?" I took them out to the area the UFO crashed. Of course, we couldn't technically cross over into the crash site proper, but we got close enough. Edward was carrying expensive-looking binoculars, his leather shoes crunching against the rocks and dust and dirt of the desert. "You ever seen a UFO before?" he asked me, handing the binoculars to Eleanor, and then looked up himself. "I've seen things, unexplainable things, whether they're from out of this world or not is still up for debate." I glanced at Eleanor. She wasn't looking at the stars, but the moon, and I glanced up too just in time to see a cloud race across its face. "You." Edward was quiet for a moment, thinking. "7. Pardon. I've seen 7 truly unidentified flying objects. 8 if you count the one over Black Mountain, but I'm not so sure." "You've seen exactly 7 UFOs? Edward looked down at me and nodded. "Yeah, at least. We didn't have any documentation on them at the time. Now we do, of course, but I'm sure you could imagine our frustration at finding things we didn't know about." He suddenly flicked his arm out, checking his wristwatch. "What is it you do again?" Instead of answering, he walked over to the girl and tapped her shoulder. "Elle." He took the binoculars from her, held them up to his face, and pointed them directly above us. "Ah, and here it is, right on time." "Here what is?" "That," Eleanor hissed beside me, pointing up with her right arm, guiding my gaze. And then I saw it, this thing up there, shaped like a triangle, gliding across the sky. I could tell it was there from the way it blocked out the specks that made up the Milky Way. But it wasn't until it slid across the surface of the moon that I gasped. It was like nothing I had ever seen before, and I've seen some strange shit out here at night. Suddenly, A sound rang out from above us, underneath us, around us, and I yelled, covering my ears, moving to crouch. You know that sound the tripods make from War of the Worlds, that loud, booming, horrifying shit? That's what it sounded like. That's the only thing I can compare it to. It was loud, so loud, and I shook my head, trying to rid myself of it. Next to me, Edward stood stock still, gazing up, as if he couldn't hear anything at all, and for a moment, I wondered if I was really hearing anything or if the sound was being projected into my mind from whatever that thing in the sky was. But then I saw that Eleanor was looking at Edward, and her face was a mask of terror. See, she stopped suddenly, glanced at me, then up, then back at her uncle. Edward, I'm scared. I know, but it's okay. I'm pretty sure that's a T-33. So, they won't be coming down here. They're just watching. Edward paused for a beat, then said, and waiting. And waiting. I heard myself say, for what? For the signal to invade or abduct. He grinned sinisterly from underneath the binoculars. Eleanor made a displeased noise, and he chuckled. Only kidding. Only kidding. As we watched the triangle disappeared behind the clouds and back into obscurity, Edward, looking over at Eleanor, suggested we headed back, that it was late. I glanced at the girl. It looked like she might cry, and nodded in agreement. We walked back to my house in relative silence, Edward glancing up every so often, then checking his watch. Eleanor trailed behind him, her head down, like a sad puppy, and as soon as we arrived back, she immediately went to Edward's car, a black Jeep, and shut herself inside. Edward turned to me. Sorry about that. I held up my hand and said, oh, it's no problem. I know how teens are. He nodded, then opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off, unable to stop myself. What was that thing? Do you know? Was it really a UFO? Edward opened his mouth again, closed it, thought for a moment, then said, just be careful, and thank you for the tour. Confused, I said, yeah, sure, you're welcome. Hope you get home safe. He smiled, turned, and got into the Jeep. I waved them off as they drove down the dirt road in the direction of Colorado, and stood watching them until their headlights died away into the darkness. This morning, I woke up to my phone pinging and flicked it on to half a dozen notifications. Apparently, everyone who was registered for my tour tonight canceled, and then 4 men took their spots. One of them messaged me, told me he was excited to talk to me, to pick my brain, whatever that means. So that's it. I saw something unexplainable last night, something that is indicative of something dark and sinister and hidden. But that's not what terrifies me. What terrifies me is knowing that they're just up there, waiting for the right moment, and those who know about them down here don't seem too concerned. Shouldn't we be concerned? Shouldn't we question everything? And with that in mind, don't listen to me. Go see for yourself. Go out at night. Look up.
Some people say they would like knowing every little secret the government hides from us. Others disagree and say the comfort of the unknown is better. I am here not for anyone but myself. I won't give you my name or anything personal because what I am about to share lies within the secrets the government doesn't want you knowing. I worked for NASA in cooperation with the International Space Station for all of 9 years. I began my job as a tech that would help develop the communications between us down on Earth and the astronauts that are in space. My job is one of the most important parts besides the actual rocket that takes you to space. Without me, you wouldn't know what was going on up there. Think about if there was some type of emergency and communications were blocked. I would love the nights where they would call me at 3 in the morning because someone couldn't figure out how to press a button right. In all seriousness though, my job is very needed. When you deal with high-stress jobs like these, you have to sign different contracts like NDAs for instance. It was mainly so we didn't go sell the United States space technology to the highest bidder. Or at least that's what they say. Hell, if breaking an agreement is the worst thing I am doing here, then send me to hell because I sure know some people that'll be meeting me there. Look, if they still want to hang Snowden after me, by all means go for it. Everyone knew the NSA was fishy anyways.
something the majority of the public don't know anything about, was the science experiments that were taking place in space, specifically the ISS. These experiments were no average sophomore chemistry science experiments. These were the type of experiments that needed to be far, far away from Earth and any humans. For instance, nuclear energy experiments, or nuclear warhead experimentation. That is just one of the things that happened while I worked for NASA. This sick shit was agreed upon by the Roscosmos aka Russia, JAXA aka Japan, ESA aka Europe, and CSA aka Canada. When they built the damn space station, there were intergovernmental treaties and agreements that were signed. When I think of agreements, I never would have thought of this shit. I mean, fuck Area 51 when you can just have the ISS. The extraterrestrial technology that we found is up there running the damn station. What you thought we took rockets filled with supplies to build a station all by hand? No, the United States used alien technology to make the International Space Station orbit. Call me crazy, but I am one of the first to see this shit take place. Let me dive a little deeper into one of the worst experiments I've seen. It was a casual day at work when the administrative assistant Kelly called my desk. Hey, redacted, the director would like to see you in his office. Okay, tell him that I'm on my way now. Will do, Mr. Redacted. So the director, who everyone calls, is the boss man. He oversees all the projects here at NASA and wanted to speak with me about something. Walking into his office, he greeted me with a firm handshake, gesturing for me to sit. Sitting down in his comfy office chair, I asked, "May I ask what this meeting is about?" "Of course. Before I explain in detail about our next big project, I just need you to sign some small papers for me." With a small grin on his face, he slid a paper across the desk towards me with a pen in his other hand. I took the pen and read at the top of the paper, "Non-disclosure agreement." Doubling back to that, I asked, "Does this have to do with the ISS?" "Yes, we made a new discovery, and this can't be shared with anyone outside of this office." Giving me this stern look, he asked, "Understand me?" Seeing his facial expression, I knew this wasn't something to mess with. I replied, "Of course, classified information." I took the pen and, interested at this point, signed my name where the X was on the paper. I did so for the next couple of papers, and then the director began to speak. "So, all of this paperwork filled out, I will fill you in on the new discovery." I nodded. On the expedition to Mars, our rocket had an interference with some outside force. It was almost as if it was blocking our communications with Earth. The team tried making contact, but unfortunately got no response. We received an emergency response 20 minutes after we lost connection. He then clicked his mouse a few times on his computer and brought an audio file up. He clicked played. "This is Echo 142, Expedition Martha. We are having some communication errors with base. The source is coming from an out-of-view, unidentified spacecraft. Subject is appearing on radar a mile to our left." Wait, what? Echo 142 to base, our radar is now showing subject is now a mile to our right. It appears to be popping up in different locations every scan. Whoa, look at that. It's right in front of us, about 50 feet away from our aircraft. It's completely black, almost I'd call it transparent. Our ship is moving towards it without pressure being applied to the mechanics. Turn the damn ship, Mike. I am. It's overriding our controls. Shit, Sichite. Look out. Seconds later, you hear the mic cut in and out with static beginning to get louder and louder. I heard a loud bang and echo call for help. The static overcame the cries for help, and something distorted began to speak. I couldn't make out what it was saying because it was using the static and longitudinal waves to say something. The director repeated the last part over a couple times for me to make out what it was saying. I heard it say, "Stop searching, go home," in a very deep, distorted sound. The director stopped playing the file and said, "We never got that ship back. It disappeared quite literally off our radars. We came up with a few ideas of what happened to them. 1. is whatever they saw in front of them disintegrated their ship as soon as they came into contact with the unidentified flying object. 2. They were hurled into space at a velocity which would alter their course so rapidly that they would no longer be in the sun's orbit, basically leaving us with nothing to go off of. All I could say now is, what do you want me to do? We want you to make contact with whatever is out there. Sir, with all respect, I just don't think that's possible. He nodded and butted in. You see, that's where you're wrong. It is possible. We did it back in the 60s. You're telling me that the United States made contact with alien life back in the 60s? Well, you think we just go about spurting that to the media? No. This is why you signed those NDAs. If this gets mentioned to anyone about anything you just heard, your entire career will go to shit, and you'll be black-bagged by the higher-ups. You understand? This, you see, right there is when I knew something wasn't right. That threat he made to me brought a chill down my spine. I needed to find more about this. Yes, of course I understand. I just will need access to the same software you used back in the 60s. We have something way newer and up to date than that. Follow me. He began to take me to this door that was blocked off by 2 armed guards and an access code. The director typed it in and gestured for me to follow. We got into an elevator at the end of the hallway, and he scanned his keycard and pressed the bottom floor. The elevator proceeded down to the last floor and made a clicking sound, and a door behind us opened. There was a long white hallway and a sanitation area. I followed his orders and walked through. Mist began to spray onto me, and then a spout of air blew in every direction. After this was finished, a loud beep played through speakers, and with that opened a door to the other side. We both entered into this room, where he flipped a switch to reveal a large aircraft in the middle of a large white hangar. I've been working here for 9 years and had no idea that there was a secret hangar with a UFO inside. He pointed both his arms towards it and yelled, "Amazing! Right. What is it? A UFO? No shit, this is something that you'll never see again in your entire life." He wasn't kidding about that. That would be the last time I was ever down there. You're damn right. Where did we find it? Last Christmas, off the coast of Panama. The Navy was called in before anyone saw it. Hey, I gotta ask, what does this have to do with making contact? Ah, great question. Watch and learn. He then grabbed some type of switch and pulled it, causing the ground to shake. I had to regain balance and looked up to see nothing except the director holding something I couldn't see in his hands. Where did it go? It's still here, just invisible. Watch. He then flipped the switch again, causing the ground to shake, and all of a sudden the aircraft began to reappear in front of me. I felt like pinching my arm or something, because what I was seeing right now could not be real. I'm giving you permission to use the tech in here to make communication with whatever those beings out there are. See, this is what led me to understand what type of experiments were taking place 250 miles above me. After I was on the good side of the director, he gave me access to all the classified information that was taking place within the metal walls of the space station. After this day, I was rewarded with a new office twice as big and a raise. It was almost like they were bribing me to stay and finish their tasks for them. Having all this information available to me, I thought about what I could do. It was a Sunday evening when I was scrolling through old documents on my work computer, and I came across a file that read Expo ISS. I double-clicked the file and up came a video which I clicked on. The video opened and played. It showed this creature lying on a table. There was a pipe leaking fumes to the right and 3 scientists all wearing hazmat suits. This creature was laying on the table with this long gray body that led up to its thick neck growing towards its massive jaw. You could see its veins pumping this metallic liquid up the neck. Its jaw connected with these sharp teeth that continued rows back like a shark. Its snout was a mix of gray and black, curving out and down. It had 2 tiny black soulless eyes separated by its large snout. This monster made this vibrating tone with its vocal cords, screaming in agony. The brain of this thing was partially coming out of its huge forehead. The tendons and muscle protruding with this blue, oozing liquid pouring out. I saw one of the scientists reach his yellow-covered arm near that thing, and the table moved as this thing tried attacking the scientist. It popped the screws loose, mounting the table to the floor. This thing was being held down by metal restraints holding its neck, arms, and legs in place. I could see his hazmat suit start to boil from its arm as that blue ooze spurted from that vile thing's mouth. That thing then bit a chunk out of the scientist's arm. I saw him fall back onto the floor. He began to seize, and all of his muscles contorting and shifting. That same metallic liquid began to come out of his eyes and mouth. Something was different about him now. His eyes were completely black, but he wasn't moving. The two other scientists at this point left the room to lock in that creature and the deceased scientist. My stomach turned with what I saw next. The dead scientist twitched and broke his two arms to snap back into a crab walk form. His joints on his knees were now shifted completely around. He jumped onto the wall and started to climb like a damn spider. He now was directly above that creature, and they were making eye contact. He took his fingers, which were now twice as long with razor-sharp nails, and gauged his own eyes out. He began to stab those black soulless eyes at first, causing the metallic liquid to shoot out like a fire hose. He repeated this until both black metallic covered eyes were in his hands. He then fed both of his eyes to that creature. The last thing the scientist did was press the emergency evac button, which sucked everything out, including the creature and the scientist, into space. My mind was flustered with horrible thoughts. I kept repeating him gauging his own eyes out, and that liquid spewing out like a pressure washer. The video ended after the button was pressed. I then heard a slight knock come from my office door, and I shut my monitor off. It was the director. "Hey, just checking in on you to see how your work is coming." "It's coming along, but you could really help me actually." "Oh, how so?" "I need some more information about what we know about the aliens and anything to do with the ISS. I think it could help me get somewhere on making contact with them." "Let me see what I can pull up. I am going to need some serious progression by next Friday though." This meant only one thing. The feds were about to come, aka the men in the dark suites. These are the people who oversee all the classified government projects. Ah, you gotta love surprise visits. Don't we all? Aha. I'll let you get back to it now. Thanks. Later that day, I got an email from the director with a couple classified files. I pulled them up on my desktop and began to read. April 6, 2015. Experiment 12 ISS Nuclear Energy Converter. This project was to see if they could convert nuclear energy into some type of viable resource to use down on Earth. June 21, 2016. Experiment 26 ISS Time Warp. This project consists of taking time itself and reconstructing it on a molecular level, making it easier to travel way faster in space. This failed and caused a hole to breach the side of the ISS, killing 2 crew in the process. December 17, 2017. Experiment 52 ISS Human Cloning. This project was a backup plan if the world was to end and all the non-renewable resources on Earth ran out. We learned how to take the DNA of someone and make thousands of people and edit their gene group to change how they look or what gender they are. May 9, 1962. ISS Experiment 72 ISS Extraterrestrial Contact. This is the exact day that we made contact with them. Back in the 60s. There is a clip that I played in all black and white. This is a big day for the United States of America. I, John F. Kennedy, as the President of the United States of America, like to honor NASA for the achievement of contact with extraterrestrial beings. My screen showed an error. Video corrupt. Please try again. Was I just watching Kennedy tell everyone about the first time they made contact with aliens publicly? There is no way that NASA, the CIA, or the NSA would allow him to tell everyone that aliens are real. That would just cause mass panic, wouldn't it? Hell, here is another conspiracy why JFK was assassinated. I continued to read about this experiment. Notes. We sent out multiple messages hoping for a response back. We are sending it within the same zone that we received transmission from the UFO. It has been days since any readings. It has been a week since last transmission, and we just received a callback. Time measurements read that it took 3 days to transmit, so the object has to be a few light years away. Loud static with a low vibrating voice saying, "Stop looking. The higher-ups are shutting down our unit. Until next update." So they had the same exact frequency come in, just like the missing Mars unit said they experienced. Something tells me I'm already this far, so no point in going back now. For my job, however, I myself made contact with them. I haven't told the director yet, since I am afraid of what to do. The transmission was sent to the ISS through my communications launchpad, where I then had the satellites on the ISS redirect towards the dark side of the moon. Yes, I know people say some weird stuff happens where we can't see, but now I know. I was getting readings from high frequencies just over yonder from the moon. I wrote this down in the logs, and then I looked at the wavelengths I was getting back. The only way something could put out super high and then super low frequencies was if you were a dog whistle. These were supersonic frequencies though. As I was recording the waves, they all stopped as fast as they started. I sent out another request to try to get something back. I was now getting readings that there was an aircraft 200 meters away from the space station. I squinted my eyes, knowing that whatever was just 250,000 miles away traveled directly next to the space station within microseconds. What I just witnessed was, by all the rules and laws of physics, impossible.
Who I am is not important. All you need to know is this. For the past 5 years, I've been part of the NASA team that looks after the Voyager 1 probe as it travels further and further away from the Earth. We have helped keep it functional for decades after its expected lifetime and at a distance of 14.5 billion miles away from Earth. It really is a marvel of human engineering. If you're interested in our work, you've probably read in recent news about the unexplained malfunctions that the craft has been suffering from. It's true that the probe is experiencing difficulties, but that's not even half of it. God, it's not even a malfunction at all. Blame the government suits for that lie. The probe's orientation in space is managed by a system called the AASIS, which stands for Attitude Articulation and Control System. Normally, the AASIS makes sure that the Voyager has its antenna pointed to Earth so that it can both send and receive signals. That is how we get the data the probe collects, and that is how we make sure it will stay functional for as long as possible. 2 weeks ago, we started receiving information from the AASIS that simply could not be true. We checked, then double-checked, but there was no mistake. The data we were getting contained a single, confounding piece of information. The probe had stopped. It was, to put it simply, hanging motionless in space. We scrambled to find the source of the error. Had the AASIS broken down, sending us flawed information? Was it some other system that had broken? Thankfully, the fault protection software hadn't triggered. That would have shut down all but the most essential functions of the probe. As it was, we could run all the tests and diagnostics we needed. No one considered even for a second that the readings were correct. That would be ludicrous. But day after day we found nothing. As far as we could see, there was no malfunction at all. Nothing had broken or gone wrong. For all we could tell, the AASIS was working just fine and the probe was indeed just hanging in space. NASA higher-ups berated us and told us to look again. Probes don't just stop, they told us. There's something we're missing here, there has to be. A monotonous, unfulfilling week followed. More tests, more diagnostics. Same result every time. In desperation and at our wits' end, we attempted to instruct the probe to rotate or start moving again. The thrusters complied, but the Voyager remained stubbornly in place. Our approach to the situation changed. We shut down all the systems aboard the Voyager and, going one by one, switched them back on and checked their functionality down to the smallest detail, only moving on to the next after we had made absolutely sure that they were running without any issues. Then a breakthrough. Without our prompting, the onboard plasma wave instrument, essentially a sensor that detects waves of electrons in the interstellar space that the probe travels through, had switched back on and begun sending data to us. Understandably, this caused quite a stir. Equipment turning on and off of its own accord. Now that was a problem. There was a feeling of doom in the air. Suddenly, the idea of losing the Voyager 1, after so many decades, seemed all too real. The data from the plasma wave instrument can be listened to, since the waves it detects take place on frequencies that the human ear can detect. Naturally, we decided we should listen to whatever recordings it had sent back. From the very beginning, the data was bizarre. Normally, the sound of the plasma wave instrument is a monotonous, eerie hum, the background noise of the interstellar void. The recording we received was nothing like that. Rather, it was a series of rapid spikes, a bleeping, wailing sound, irregular, punctuated by bouts of almost silence. Our team was dumbfounded. What did it mean? Another faulty reading? A space anomaly? At this point, we were coming to terms with losing the probe altogether. I guess it wasn't that far-fetched. Voyager 1 was operating decades past its expected lifetime. It had always been a possibility that it would simply break down one day. As we sat in the listening room, pondering and arguing, one of my colleagues, a genius and one-time child prodigy named McKinley, suddenly sat up straight. I looked over at him. His face was wrapped with fascination. "God above, I've got it. It's Morse code." There was a second of silence. "Ridiculous," someone sneered from across the room. "How could it dash?" "Listen to it," McKinley insisted. "The spikes, the punctuation, the breaks, it's Morse, I tell you." He grabbed a paper and pencil and began playing the recording back again, mumbling under his breath. After a few minutes, he sat up and lifted the paper into the air. "Per aspera ad astra," he declared victoriously. The room exploded with frantic activity, people shouting over each other, asking questions, voicing confusion, drawing hypotheses. That phrase, per aspera ad astra, was known to us all. When the Voyager probes were launched, NASA attached something called the Golden Records to them, a phonograph record meant as a message to any extraterrestrials they might encounter out in the void. The records contained everything from music to the sounds of nature to recorded greetings in 55 languages. And last but not least, there was a Morse code message. Per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars. A motivational quip sent to our interstellar neighbors. More recordings came in even as we argued among ourselves. These readings were impossible, they couldn't be real. We were receiving all the sounds stored on the Golden Records, distortedly played back to us through the readings of the plasma wave instrument. Birdsong, music, even the sound of Carl Sagan's son saying hello. With each reading, the room grew more quiet, more subdued as the truth dawned on us all. Something out there, was listening to the Golden recording. And then the AAS went haywire. Suddenly, there was movement where, just a second before, there had been none. Our systems were flooded with locational data, and my heart plummeted as I realized what was happening. The Voyager had started moving again. At speeds no human creation should be capable of, it was hurtling through space. And it was heading back towards the Earth. I understand now. I understand why this is happening. The recordings aren't the only thing on that disc. There's so much more. Diagrams of human biology, of our culture, of the solar system. Dear God, it all leads right back to Earth.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.